great. So a couple folks are coming on in, and then we're going to get started. But before we do, just want to thank Norel Hemphill. We call her Esquire, and I know there's going to be a room full of them today, but has done an amazing job of working with Dr. Hammer to bring this event together. And we think we're going to have a good time over the next hour and a half, 2 hours. So I'll wait for my cue for us to get started. But thank you all for being online, and thank you for everyone that's here in person.
Thank you, Monica, and you're not done yet. So uh, we'll be blessed with her presence again. Uh, my name is Peter Hammer. I'm a professor of law, and I'm the faculty director of the Damon J Center for Civil Rights. And it's my blessing to be able to welcome you all here this evening, those in the room, those online. So happy that this has been recorded, so this can be a resource of education and advocacy for people in urban areas and rural areas in Kentucky and Michigan and Ohio and Illinois and throughout the country. So really inspiring. But welcome to Water Affordability and Interstate Exchange about the legal and policy frameworks, local, state, and federal. I want to sort of ground us a little bit in the legacy of Damon J. Keith, Judge Damon J. Keith. We just finished celebrating in Black History Month the 37th annual Soul Food Lunch that Judge Keith started a long time ago, and the Keith Clerk family and administrators in the Keith Center are carrying that on tradition. And the feeling that most people had, there were almost 200 people joined in the federal courthouse in the Detroit room, was one of joy and celebration. Right? And we need that. These are difficult times. But it wasn't just joy and celebration for the sake of joy and celebration. It was joy and celebration in the struggle that we are fighting, acknowledging that we are just the latest generation of many people and many generations that have fought for racial justice, for economic justice, for social justice. So we can struggle, but we can struggle joyfully. We can struggle in recognition of the long lineage of liberation that are in all of our traditions, whether that is Black or white, Latino, whether that is urban, whether that is rural. And that spirit was really motivating. So I want to kind of bring that positive energy of joy and celebration in a righteous struggle into this room. Water is essential to life. Right. And I'll say that again because it's so true. Water is essential to life. But as Monica and the advocates of the We the People of Detroit know, when water was first being shut off in Detroit, we couldn't even get emergency room physicians to say that you need water more than you need food. Right. The people can't live without water. You kind of figure out what is the power that people in authority have to silence scientists, right? To silence doctors, to not even say what we know every high school biology person is taught, right? How much more water there is in our body than materiality. And yet people are willing to indulge in those lies and to base policy on those lies. And so this notion of still needing to struggle, still needing to raise the consciousness of the centrality of water to life. And if water is essential to life, it's got to be central to policy. And our policy has to match our values. And our policies don't, right? And everybody in this room knows that. Anybody who struggled in water, again, from urban areas to rural areas, something I was late to learn when starting to do the water work. We're struggling so much with failed infrastructure here. Failed infrastructure in Detroit, failed infrastructure in Flint, where infrastructure is weaponized against communities. In so many areas of the South, there was never any infrastructure built, right? And so the kind of racism in many parts of the country or economic kind of discrimination against poor communities in many parts of the country was saying you're not even worth investing in, right? And that's another insidious kind of inequity that we have to fight. So we've got a full agenda. I'm not going to talk any longer, but I do want to welcome Monica Lewis-Patrick of We the People in Detroit to ground us as few people can. So Detroit's water warrior, I invite you to the mic, Monica Lewis-Patrick. Thank you so much.
All right. Peace and blessings, everyone. And thank you so much. Can we give another round of applause to none other than the great Dr. Peter Hammer. Uh, First of all, I just want to thank Peter for opening his doors here at Wayne State and the Damon Keefe Center. Peter has been a long friend of We the People of Detroit, but just a stalwart member of the legal community that we could always rely on and trust. It's difficult when you're dealing with austerity, when you're dealing with racism and inequities and injustices, even sometimes to find legal folks that will speak up. And so I really appreciate Peter always being that stalwart member of our community that we can always rely on, we can always call upon, and he's always willing to open the doors here at the Damon Keefe Center. So thank you so much, Peter, and thank you for the Damon Keefe Center and the Wayne State Law School. But I'm here today on behalf of We the People of Detroit and our illustrious board members and staff and volunteers to welcome some of the greatest water warriors that I know. They're from all over the country. They are doing work at a phenomenal pace to make sure that we're answering the call for this generation. Many times we talk about civil rights as a past kind of issue, and what we know from the people of Detroit and our friends in Kentucky and Ohio and Illinois and all of those that are fighting for the human right to water, and that water is a good fight. What we heard from the Honorable Coleman Alexander Young, he told us if you find a good fight, get in it. And we decided a long time ago at We the People of Detroit that we would get in that fight. But we could not be a part of that fight if there had not been legendary leadership already paving the way. So I have to lift up some of that legendary leadership that is the shoulders that we stand up on. There were many folks here in the city of Detroit over half a century that have been fighting for the human right to water. We have to acknowledge the legendary work of Michigan Welfare Rights, of the People's Water Board, but we also have to lift up the having legislative champions like the amazing Marianne Mahaffey and the Honorable Councilwoman Joanne Watson. Those women worked in tandem with the community to create the first water affordability policy in the nation. So some of the work that we see happening in places like Philadelphia and Baltimore, it was seeded here in the great city of Detroit. And so even though we have not been able to fully operationalize and codify water affordability in a sustainable way, we take a lot of pride in the fact that one of our mentors, the Honorable Councilwoman Joanne Watson, told us a long time ago that it could not only be about our fighting for Detroit, but we had to take on the fight for humanity. And so we've gotten in that fight, and we can tell you we've never looked back. We've never looked back. And so we're so proud of the work that is happening today. And I just want to acknowledge some of what we call We the People of Detroit 2.0. These are the leaders that will be leading into the future. And so I really want to say a shout out to Norrell Hemphill, who is an attorney. She also heads up our legal and policy work at We the People of Detroit and does an amazing job of pulling some things together all the time. She also is a part of the leadership of our We Legal Fellowship for all the legal eagles in the room. If you're looking for an opportunity to work on water to expand your community consciousness, Norrell's the person to see. And then we also have our Director of Communications, Tiana Starks. Put your hands in the air and wave it like you just don't care. Uh, Tiana does a beautiful job of making sure that our branding, our message, the codification of our values are exemplified in anything that we produce and put out. So we're so grateful to have all of them here today. But I just want to, on behalf of We the People of Detroit, on behalf of our board members, and I see that two of them are here, Miss Deborah Taylor and Mama Cecily McClellan, could you stand up and let people recognize you as part of the board and the founding of We the People of Detroit? All right. Nothing at We the People of Detroit would go without these two women. And also in their absence, two of our other founders, Mama Chris Griffith and the amazing Professor Aurora Harris. So, so much gratitude for all of their work and their sacrifice to make sure that we do good work every day. But at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Norrell Hemphill. I call her Esquire, but since it's a room full of Esquires, I won't say it today. But if you'll come on down and take us into the next part of our program.
Thank you. Thank you. So, thank you everybody for coming today. We're grateful to have you here. Next up, we will have a great presentation from Aaron Kanzik with River Network. They recently did a report on water shutoffs. Come on, Aaron. They recently did a report on water shutoffs that is really, I think, important and very central to grounding us.
Can everyone hear me okay with this mic? Including our friends on Zoom,
Yes.
hopefully. Okay, I see a thumbs up. Thank you, Alexis. All right, I'm gonna share some slides as well while I do this presentation. So I think Tiana's gonna cue those up, but just wanna say thank y'all so much for having me. It's an honor to be able to kick off this really exciting lineup of people that I definitely look up to in this space. Um, I am Erin Kanzig. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Drinking Water Program Director at River Network. I live here in Detroit, but River Network is a national nonprofit. You can actually go to the next slide if you don't mind. We grow and strengthen a transformational national network of water justice and river advocates, and really we exist to build a powerful and inclusive movement that ensures abundant clean water for all people and nature to thrive. Why water affordability is important to me, as Dr. Hammer already said, water is essential to life, and access to water is really foundational and a baseline measure of our own individual, household, and community stability. Detroit has been at the forefront of water shutoff and water affordability organizing, and as a national partner, my goal is to lift up local solutions and make connections across our network. If you want to learn more about River Network, if you're not familiar with our work, you can check out our website, rivernetwork.org, or talk to me later as well if you're in the room. If you can go to the next slide, Tiana. I am going to give us just a little bit of grounding in the national context of why we're talking about water affordability, as well as give a little snapshot of a resource that River Network just recently published focused on best practices for avoiding water shutoffs. And I'll touch a little bit also on national water assistance program and current and recent legislative efforts at the federal level to address this issue before we turn it over to our wonderful panelists. So I think most people, perhaps both virtually and here in this room, understand the difference between affordability and assistance. But if this is a concept that's new to you, you may hear folks during the panel talking about affordability and assistance, and they are related but distinct concepts. So assistance is really a short-term temporary solution to address the fact that folks often have a hard time paying their water bills. And so there are customer assistance programs that exist that often provide some sort of discount on your water bill. These are really important programs, but they're not getting at the underlying issue of water affordability. Affordability is really looking at the systemic level to address long-term structural changes. The definition up here from Pacific Institute says the cost of essential water and sanitation should be inexpensive enough that cost does not prevent access nor interfere with other essential expenditures. So we shouldn't be having to make trade-offs between paying your water bill, paying your electricity and gas, getting food on the table. Water is essential. If you could go to the next slide, Tiana. Water affordability is a growing issue. The Environmental Protection Agency estimates between around 12 to 19 million households across the United States lacks access to affordable water services. So between 9 and almost 15% of total households in the US are struggling each month to pay their bill. And nationally, the cost of unaffordable water service bills ranges from $5 to $8.8 billion per year. I know this is a lot of numbers, but just to give you some overarching sense of this isn't an issue that's only in Detroit. It's not only in majority Black cities. Like, that's just to be clear, like this is an issue that exists in really small communities, medium-sized communities, and large ones across the country. And there are several factors that are influencing this rising cost. So trillions of dollars are needed nationwide for upgrading and replacing aging water, wastewater, and stormwater infrastructure. So we often are saying water affordability, but it also has to do with the wastewater and stormwater components of our entire water systems. I'm going to throw out another few big numbers, but in a really recent report that was published at the end of last year by the Value of Water campaign, they estimate that $3.4 trillion is needed for capital investments for both drinking water and wastewater and stormwater infrastructure for the next 20 years. So that equates to a staggering $1.68 billion needed every year. And that's not even including the costs of operations and maintenance, which is also rising because of inflation, tariffs, and other things. So our utilities are under a lot of strain because a lot of our infrastructure was built 50 plus years ago. It's failing. It needs to get upgraded and replaced. And they're saying, oh, how are we going to pay for this? Compounding this is that since the 1970s, federal investment in water infrastructure has gone down. And so we become more and more reliant on local ratepayers to cover those costs. And I'd be remiss to say like climate change impacts also are going to be affecting this not only right now, but into the future. So whether we're being proactive and making our water systems more resilient, or we're cleaning up and repairing things that are destroyed after floods and hurricanes, those are also going to be compounding costs. So it's a little bit of a grim picture, but there are hopefully solutions. And I'll just say, like, River Network, I feel like we have a pretty big, ambitious vision where there's a future where everyone can afford to pay for the clean, safe, and reliable water that's coming out of their taps, where no one's water is shut off because of their inability to pay, where communities have adequate resources for water infrastructure maintenance, and where drinking water contaminants do not threaten public health. So a solid vision. We have a lot of work to do, and I'm really excited to be able to do it with a lot of the folks that are in this room tonight. So I'm gonna go to the next slide, Tiana, and turn a little bit to the resource that we just recently published, that I'm hoping will be something that folks in this room can put to use. So we might have a little hard time. Oh, it's going to load. Okay. So we have a resource called Keep the Water Flowing, Best Practices for Avoiding Water Shutoffs. And I just want to say, like, thanks to the many efforts of a lot of advocates, researchers, and practitioners, water affordability has moved more into the public eye in recent years. That's an issue that deserves recognition. And in recent years, there's also been a lot of additional really robust reports and recommendations that have been published, including by the Environmental Protection Agency under the last administration. These are really big reports, though. So one of our goals in this was to break it down, make it a little bit easier to digest. And we have it actually in two different formats. You can see on this screen here. We have what's called a story map. So if you've never heard of a story map, it's a more interactive, visually, what's the word I'm looking for? There's engaging. Thank you, Deborah. And so if that is something that you learn better by looking at visuals, I encourage you to check out the story map. And then we also do have a more standard PDF version of it as well. And you can, if you're in the room, scan that QR code to access both versions. And so if you want to go to the next slide, it puts forward policy recommendations at local, state, and federal levels that water affordability advocates can use across the country. But as Mama Monica mentioned, we did aim to write this resource to be for both water utility staff, as well as community groups. Because ultimately, if we want to see changes at the local level especially, we need buy-in and support and partnership from our water systems. So why focus on water shutoffs specifically? Water shutoffs are really the most visible symptom of the underlying widespread condition of unaffordable water. Disrupting a household's access to water has a cascading series of negative effects from the immediate instant that your water is shut off because you have an overdue water bill. You can't flush your toilet, you can't wash your hands, you can't give your child a glass of water, you can't boil water to make dinner. All those things are immediate, and then there's long-term effects where if you are not able to pay your bill, you could end up having your home foreclosed. So there's a wide spectrum of impacts, and really we're saying this should not be the norm. This is an extremely common practice across our country as well. So just to also reiterate that point too. But there are examples where people are and utilities are saying, you know what, we're actually going to change this practice and we're not going to have this be a thing that we do anymore. It is possible. An astonishing 20% of households are in debt to their water utility across this country. Low-income households are unsurprisingly disproportionately affected by water shutoffs, with people of color being more likely to experience disconnections. And there are also correlations between water shutoffs and also experiencing other environmental and other risk factors such as urban heat islands, poor air quality, high unemployment, and historical redlining. So when we're thinking about environmental justice concerns and cumulative impacts, water shutoffs are often layered on top of all of those other things that people are experiencing and grappling with. Next slide. Thank you. So the resource that we published sort of gives some of that background information about the sort of the current state of affairs in our country. And then we focus in on 3 different case studies in Chicago, Illinois, DeKalb County, Georgia, and San Antonio, Texas. And we chose these 3 locations because they're all sort of on different steps along the way toward achieving complete water shutoffs and establishing water affordability at the local level. So in Chicago, they actually have a moratorium on water shutoffs. It's in their code. They no longer practice water shutoffs. They also have a utility billing relief program and a leak detection program. And there's a unique partnership with a nonprofit there called Elevate, where they provide implementation and analysis of how those programs are working with the city of Chicago, as well as a regional program through Cook County. In DeKalb County, Georgia, there are some really tenacious community organizers that have been working there for years to tackle their egregiously high water bills. People are getting water bills for thousands and thousands of dollars. The water system itself is failing. There's so many leaks that like most of the water isn't even reaching people's homes. And they have had a really hard time contesting those water bills with their local government, and they have been pushing for a resolution to establish a new type of rate structure and to provide a lot of debt relief for folks that feel like they've been unjustly burdened with all these high water bills. That resolution passed, which is a win, but they're now facing a lot of hardships with the implementation of it. So they're still in the middle of their journey towards water affordability. And then in San Antonio, Texas, the San Antonio Water System, or SAWS, has had a program in place for a long time called the Uplift Program, and they really view their role as a utility as an anchor institution within their community. And so they're seeing their customers as their neighbors, and they come at their work with a strong culture of care. And they actually have established for the Uplift customers a separate rate structure for those that are enrolled in that program that's not the same as their overall customer base. So that's a unique one. Monica also mentioned Philadelphia and Baltimore. Lots of people have written about those 2 places, and they are good to reference, but we decided to focus on a few that maybe you weren't as familiar with. And then the next section of this resource highlights 10 recommendations that you can take at the local level for reducing or eliminating the practice of water shutoffs. And we these emerged out of the research that we did. So I should have mentioned this previously. We conducted a utility survey of utility staff perspectives on why they practice water shutoffs, solutions that they would identify, or what they're doing to try to reduce the practice. We interviewed a bunch of individual experts in the field, including Mary, who's going to be on the panel later. And we also conducted a focus group of folks that have been directly impacted by water shutoffs, along with doing a lot of reading of these other prior reports. And so all of that sort of culminated in these 10 recommendations, and within the resource, they're in really small little chunks where we are giving advice to both water utilities as well as community groups on what they can do within each of these recommendations, and in some cases where they can hopefully work together. Next slide. And then at the end of this resource, we also have an appendix with some state and federal policy examples. Some of these are of legislation that have passed and become law and are getting implemented. And so the ones that are on this screen from Washington and California, I know the text is, you can't actually read this text. It's just meant to be a little visual for you. Are in existence. So hopefully for folks that are working at the state level, you can look at these and say, like, is this something that we can think about doing in our state? We also have pending legislation examples, including from Michigan with the Water Equals Life Coalition. And I think we included some examples of what y'all are trying to do in Kentucky as well. So I'll update those if they change. And then we again have some examples from pending federal legislation as well. I'm gonna stop rambling on about the resource and then quickly turn to giving you all a quick recap of water assistance and water affordability discussion at the federal level. And I'll just preface this by saying I am not a lobbyist. I'm not in DC. I'm not actively myself engaging with legislators on this. So if you have some of those questions, I probably can't answer them. But I would like to just quickly note that there was a temporary national water assistance program called LIWAP, which stands for Low Income Household Water Assistance Program, that existed between 2021 and 2024. This was the first time we had ever as a nation said, you know what, this is a problem that we need to try to give some support for. So we can think about SNAP and TANF and other food assistance programs that have existed for decades, or LIHEAP, which is for energy assistance. We haven't had that same type of support from the federal government for water. LIWAP was really, I have to say, like, considering that it was a brand new program, was really effective during the time that it operated. It was able to provide support to communities across the country, from tribal, rural communities to large municipalities. And they served over 1.5 million households nationwide. Now, you'll remember in the first slide or so that I covered, we're saying like between 9 and 15 million households are facing unaffordable water bills. So even though 1.5 million households served is excellent, there's still a huge gap. Like, not everyone was supported by this program. And similarly, by the end of the program, they had worked with around 17,000 utilities in the country. There are 50,000 community water systems in the United States. So not everyone was even able to tap into this because it was sort of an opt-in program. But I'll end with highlights. They prevented nearly 1 million disconnections. They restored water services to over 100,000 households that had had their water shut off, and they reduced water bills for over 1 million households as well. If you want to learn more about the LIWAP program implementation and impacts, River Network did a series of blog posts on it now a few years ago. But if you want to look at that QR code, they're all there too. If you could go to the next slide, Tiana, I'm almost done yammering at you. Since LIWAP ended, there has been a lot of work by local, state, and federal nonprofits, or national nonprofits, I should say, to continue the momentum and to continue to say, like, we need a permanent version of this, and we have ideas of how we can make it even better. And there have also been legislative champions that have introduced several different pieces of legislation. I included a few on this slide. You can see from our very own Michigan Representative Tlaib, the H2O Up Act. There was an act called the Aqua Act introduced at the end of 2024, and then also a LIWAP Extension Act. And there's some other ones that are currently sort of, I think, getting drafted and worked on right now, but you can see that these all at a high level have varying levels of funding that they think should go towards the program and how long, like 10 or 5 years, it should be authorized for. And there's a lot of details, of course, within all of these around the program design. How will eligibility work? What kind of data do we want to collect? That's another thing that makes it a little bit hard to understand the full scope of water affordability issues in the country, is that we don't have a way of requiring utilities to report how many water shutoffs are they conducting every year, how much water debt do they have. And so some of these pieces of legislation try to also capture that information to build the case that this is a type of program that's needed. If you want to learn more, get involved at the federal level around water affordability, I'm going to pitch the Water Equity and Climate Resilience Caucus. They have a really strong water affordability for all platform and are actively working with legislators on passing a national assistance program that would exist into the future. With that, I'm going to say thanks so much. And I don't know if y'all are going to ask me questions now or later, but thank you. All right, Narelle says I can take questions now. So if you have questions.
Good afternoon, well, good evening, everyone. Hi, my name is Miss Yvette Lyles from Centerville Citizens for Change, and that is a great program, and thank you for the information and the overview. I was just curious as to why there wasn't a lot of participation in it. Do you think it was because a lot of the citizens or the public wasn't aware of it, or what? What do you think?
For the LIWAP program specifically?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think that was one challenge, just that it was a brand new program. And it was established still during the pandemic. So the Department of Health and Human Services had to like make it at the federal level, and then they had to coordinate with states, and the states had to coordinate with the utilities and community action agencies that were making sure that people knew like, oh, you should go enroll in this. And some states did a better job than others of making sure that people that were already on SNAP benefits, for example, would automatically be eligible to enroll in LIWAP. And some people in some states were able to like really quickly sort of navigate how to enroll people, and others lag behind. And as I mentioned also, like not every single utility chose to participate. And some of that is just because, again, for example, for small systems, they might only have like 3 staff, and they like just were overwhelmed with how much paperwork and administrative burden it would take to run that type of program. Which is why, again, like I think that we're all creative people in this room, like we can think about how could a different future version of that work better to make sure that more people are able to get enrolled.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your answer. And I just have one more thing, because I'm looking at our senior citizen population, because I am a senior citizen, and I know that a lot of us are on fixed incomes, and a lot of us are not on SNAP. We don't meet the qualification for SNAPs. However, with limited income and restricted funds, some kind of way it should be something geared towards getting seniors involved, so they can they'll know about this, because I'm sure that if more of us knew about it, we would have participated in it. So moving forward, just something to think about. How do you reach out to senior citizens and get more involved?
Yeah, if you have ideas, please share with us. But I think that, yeah, that's also a good point too, of making sure that people can enroll not only online, but in person, where people are able to sign up when they're going to a community center or other places where they're naturally going to be. And I should clarify that there were like income eligibility, that it wasn't just if you're already enrolled in a pre-existing program. Yeah.
But a lot of times senior citizens are left out the loop. Not all the time, but in some situations. And this would have been great, if senior citizens around the United States would have known more about it. You probably would have had a lot more participation. But like you said, this is the beginning. So moving forward, that's something we can looking forward to changing or adapting to make sure that the senior citizens are involved. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you, Ms. Lyles. We have one question, a couple questions in the room, and then we'll go back to the chat.
Hello, my name is Evan Doherty. Thank you for the presentation. Just had a quick question. You mentioned a lot of federal programs. Just wondering if you had any examples of some state or even municipal programs that also have been effective with water shutoffs and providing more water accessibility and affordability to people.
Yeah, so I know that again that the folks on the panel are going to be able to speak with like a lot of expertise from their own experiences in their community. So I'm going to not talk about what they're going to cover because I think they'll answer some of those questions. And here in Michigan, we are actively working on passing a statewide water affordability package of bills. And I also am going to guess that some folks from the people of Detroit will give a more eloquent overview of that at some point. So people are working on that. There doesn't currently exist, like Michigan would be leading the way in terms of state legislation if we're able to pass what has been introduced in the House. I mentioned Chicago. Chicago does have a really strong local program where they do not conduct water shutoffs and they provide a lot of services like debt forgiveness. So if you're enrolled in this program and you pay a small amount for the course of a year, like there's a certain amount that if you have money left over, they're showing that you're consistently putting aside some money each month to bring down your debt, that they will forgive a lump sum at the end of that period. And they're also providing things like leak prevention. So they're coming to people's homes. And if you're spending a ton of money because water's just leaking away in a pipe that's broken, it's not even something that you're intentionally doing. They're coming to help you fix that and things like that. So there are examples in Chicago and elsewhere where those types of programs do exist and they do a good job of making your water bill manageable.
Thank you. Russ Blant, Detroit resident. How many cities have adopted programs similar to the drainage fee, which is, of course, a charge for rainfall, direct charge for rainfall only on properties, and it's increased water bills 25 to over 50%. Huge challenge to the affordability challenge. How many cities are you aware of that have adopted such a? Now, this city didn't adopt it. A mayor imposed it without legislative approval. There was never public hearings. There was only one man who did this, but it's still imposed on us.
I think Norel wants to answer it.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you to re-ask your question after the panel because the panel will be, so this part of it was a federal overview. The panel will give you city-specific and community-specific input on water affordability. And I think some of those community folks and attorneys will be able to answer those city and site-specific questions.
Thanks for getting me off the hook.
From Detroit. My question is, in reference to Chicago's moratorium on water shutoffs, did it take a legislative vote to impose that moratorium?
So, yeah. So it was something that the city council adopted through city code. I don't believe it wasn't something that that all residents voted on. It started during, and if I don't know if anyone from Chicago is on that worked more directly on it on the Zoom perhaps, but a lot of cities, including in Detroit, for a short period of time during the COVID-19 pandemic, had issued moratoriums that were short-term to address the public health crisis. And so Chicago was able to keep momentum from that, where organizers got commitment from the then mayor to say, like, we need to make this a permanent thing. And so it's now a part of their permanent city code. Okay, I want to, Norel, I want to make sure everyone else has time to talk.
Do we have any more questions online or no? Okay. We'll do 2 more questions in person and then we'll shift into the panel and then there will be questions for Q&A when we do the panel as well.
Thanks, Erin, for all of this. My question is about the Chicago moratorium. And we hear so often the retort that, well, people just won't pay their bills if you stop shutting them off. So what's the answer to that in Chicago, I guess is my question. Like, how has that affected payments?
I'm going to be honest with you, Mary, and say that I'm not entirely sure how they've navigated and threaded that needle. I know that they do continue to provide other support for people that are still in debt, and they are actively trying to make sure that they are collecting the revenue that they need. Yeah.
We actually have another attorney expert in the room who can help us with that, Mr. Jeremy Orr.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Really quickly, during my time at NRDC, I worked on all like the low income state level in Chicago and Illinois, water access and affordability stuff. So short answer, no, right? You were here, the previous mayor say, right, they were losing funds. But the point is, and I think you all will hear this today, right, is moratoriums work when you have assistance and affordability along with it, right? And so I think you mentioned, which is they implemented the universal building relief program in Chicago, along with the state level low income program, and that moratorium started during the LIWAP program, right? So essentially you didn't see the loss of revenue that traditionally a water system will try to argue if they do moratoriums will happen. Yeah.
Thank you so much. One moment.
Yes, we often hear that talking point. But what we saw in Philadelphia, they were able to generate in 1 year $7 million into the coffers by creating a rate structure that people could afford. So when you give people a rate they can afford, they will actually pay it. So what we often do, we have to push back against that. It has been used many times here in Detroit to explain away why they can't implement water affordability. But what we know, the same legislative structure that was birthed here in Detroit, they implemented in Philadelphia, and $7 million in 1 year was generated.
Thank you so much. All right, let's shift into the panel. And again, there'll be way more time for Q&A when we do shift into the panel. So give us about a couple of minutes to get settled, and then we will start the panel portion. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Malaya, how are you?
Hey, everybody. Hello, Donald Wiggins Esquire. Donald Wiggins Jr. Esquire, I should say.
Oh, hello, future Esquire. Mrs. Smith, how are you?
Oh, well, it is always a pleasure to hear your voice.
And it's a pleasure to hear yours, always uplifting, inspirational, and motivating. And Kennedy, that smile of yours, I'm loving it.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Hello, good evening.
That's a lot.
Good evening. Hello, Dr. Smith, Director Smith. Hold on, babe.
We all set? All right.
Okay.
Go ahead and turn the mics on. Excellent. All right, we are all set. Good evening, everybody. Wow, this is Detroit, good evening. All right, no, we got the energy in the room, which is wonderful. We have amazing energy online. We've got amazing energy with the panel. Again, my name is Peter Hammer. Our panel is made up of individuals who work on water affordability in Michigan, Kentucky, Ohio, and Illinois, as well as federally and regionally. Each community has experienced injustice, social harms, environmental harms, and other harms that have devastating impacts on the citizens' daily lives. Our shared experience in these effects of these harms have on our access to clean, safe, affordable water and sanitation are serious policy questions. As a matter of format, we're going to have about 45 minutes of questions from me. We're going to reserve about 15 minutes of Q&A from the audience, both in the room and online. We're going to think about affordability. We've been talking about affordability a lot longer than the national politics have. Water affordability has been a struggle in Detroit and across the nation for decades. But we've got to remind ourselves that affordability isn't just the tap water, what we turn on and use. Affordability has all sorts of other costs as well. Some of these costs include sort of the wastewater, the water that comes through your sink, the water that you're using to bathe and to flush. Other is the stormwater that has been mentioned that is coming through the system and has to be disposed of. We have flooding and problems of drainage, as Russ was talking about earlier. And finally, we have different costs associated with the water infrastructure. So sort of water affordability and what water means and what water costs can quickly get pretty complicated. When something gets complicated, you bring the experts in. And we have a wonderful set of gifted experts here that will share their experience navigating these various water issues and how they continue to advocate for affordable water in their own communities. This is interesting. We've got 7 people here in the room. We've got 4 people online, which means we have 11 panelists. We're going to be a lot of sort of dancing a little bit with each other, dancing between who's in the room and who's on hybrid. And we have 11 people in 44 minutes, and you can do the math, right? So concise, and they'll have a chance to open it up for questions and get a little bit deeper. But everybody should introduce themselves, right? So what I'm going to ask you to do is give me your name. Actually, I'll tell you your name as I call on you, but you can say your name as well. The organization that you are with, your role in the organization, the service area, the community that affects your work, and what water issues you work on. All right, and I'll sort of go through and call on folks, point of privilege, starting with Michigan. Ms. Cecily McClellan, can you introduce yourself, your organization, and your issues?
Yes, my name is Cecily McClellan, and I am the director of Waterworks for We the People of Detroit. I also co-chair our Water Peep division, and that's our policy engagement education program. We service primary focus on the city of Detroit and our residents, our low-income residents, trying to ensure that they can get affordable water. We engage frequently with the water department and involved in their policies and trying to help them shape their policies so they are friendly to the residents of the city of Detroit.
Wonderful. Thank you. Norel?
Yes, peace and blessings. My name is Norel Hemphill.
Oh.
I'm public policy manager at We the People of Detroit, and I work with Ms. McClellan and Water Peeps. And then we also work at the local city of Detroit, state, Michigan, Great Lakes, and then also work at the national levels for policy.
Wonderful. Thank you, Norel. We have the great state of Kentucky in the room, and I'll ask Mary Cromer to introduce herself. That's not on yet. I can.
Does this one work? Yeah.
Fine.
Hey, everyone. Mary Cromer. I am so honored to be here. This is incredible. I am from Appalachian Citizens Law Center, which is a small nonprofit law and policy organization in Whitesburg, Kentucky. We work primarily on water issues, or our water work centers around issues in Eastern Kentucky in the coal fields. Our organization is centered around issues of injustice related to coal mining, and that is both environmental injustice and workers' rights issues. And so our water work stems from that, and we're working in Eastern Kentucky where there are a lot of very old, dilapidated, disinvested systems.
Thank you, Mary. Kentucky, we're going to go to Nina McCoy.
Hello, I'm Nina McCoy from Inez, Kentucky, and I'm president of Martin County Concerned Citizens. And what we deal with in our Appalachian community is lack of investment in water infrastructure that has led to many times outages within the community, and now basically to unaffordability because just trying to fix an old dilapidated system is just not within the ratepayers of our community's ability. And so we are fighting for getting more infrastructure funding and help for the citizens who can't afford the water.
Thank you, Nina. And maybe somebody you know, Mickey McCoy.
Yeah, my name is Mickey McCoy. I'm a lifelong resident of Inez, Kentucky, which is in Martin County, in the far eastern part of eastern Kentucky. I've been involved with Kentuckians for the Commonwealth, a national group, a state group that is against mountaintop removal. I fought mountaintop removal for. Somebody tell me I'm talking too much? What? You hear it? Oh, okay. Okay. My wife said to go ahead. And anyway, I just want to give a good shout out. You all got one kick-ass group up here with this We the People of Detroit. And I want to thank you for welcoming us and from Kentucky and being so righteous to us, And anyway, I'm involved with in anything that I go at. I'm also a firm believer in nonviolent civil disobedience. And I think I've gone to jail for coal before. I'll go to jail for anything I believe, any right. Nonviolent civil disobedience is not the wrong thing to do. It's the right thing to do against wrong. I'll give it up.
Thank you, Mickey. We're sticking with Kentucky, and we're going to Madison Mooney.
Hello, everyone. My name is Madison Mooney. I'm from Martin County, Inez, Kentucky, along with these fine folks next to me. I work for a nonprofit organization known as Like and Knowledge. LICAN stands for Livelihood Knowledge Exchange Network, and we're a nonprofit organization that really focuses on really understanding our communities that we want to work and serve in, and really working where the communities are and being able to support their livelihood where the communities are at and how they can grow their livelihoods in the way that they envision it. And we work with them communities when it comes to, you know, the stressors or concerns or problems that they are facing. And I have the honor and privilege to be able to work very closely, and I'm also a board member for Martin County Concerned Citizens as well. And being able to be from Martin County, be born and raised from Martin County, and being able to work for a nonprofit that supports my home and my community and a nonprofit within Concerned Citizens is such an honor. And everything that Nina and Mary have said when it comes to Eastern Kentucky and on our water issues, what we're facing, I feel like they echoed the message very loud and clear. So I wanted to just say that to save time. So thank you.
Thank you, Madison. We're moving from inside the room into online into the great state of Ohio, and Alexa Smith.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Alexis Smith, based out of Toledo, Ohio. I represent Junction Coalition, a neighborhood organization, CBO, that represents just over 7,000 residents within our neighborhood. It is a community that has been historically disinvested and experienced extreme redlining and urban revitalization, which has pushed a lot of our community into heavily industrialized communities, where they are exposed to a number of environmental hazards and environmental and climate hazards. In addition to the environmental work, we also focus on housing, youth and family services, peace education practices. And so we are a full wraparound service to our community and to our residents. But we understand just how interconnected these issues are. So you can't deal with one without dealing with the rest. And some of the environmental issues that we focus on is lead toxins, lead service line replacements, water affordability, water access, as well as still building that trust and working alongside our water utilities.
Thank you, Alexis. Moving from Ohio to Illinois and the Great Lakes, Malia Gertzma.
Actually, could I request that Ms. Yvette go first?
Absolutely. We're going to
All right.
welcome Ms. Yvette Lyles, please. Oh, you're muted still. So we got to unmute.
Okay, can you all hear me now?
We got you now. Thank you so much.
All righty. Good evening, everyone. My name is
Good
Miss
evening.
Yvette Lyles. I am with Centerville Citizen for Change. We originated out of Centerville, Illinois, a nonprofit grassroots organization of senior citizens who were sick and tired of being sick and tired of being sick and tired of the environmental injustice that was imposed upon us for 50 years, that's half of a century. We dealt with contaminated water that has sick as a dog. We dealt with flood with raw sewage combination, not just stormwater flooding, but whenever you had a flood, you always had raw sewage mixed in with it that came in and destroyed our homes. And I took sick in 2018, but thank God for Washington University, who came on board and confirmed that we were living in an area that a lot of our citizens had a high rate of H. pylori, which you get from contaminated water. So our soil is contaminated, our water is contaminated, our infrastructure should have been overhauled decades ago, and it was not. But thank God for the collaborative team of ELS. Malia came on was with NRDC, Nicole and Kennedy and Kalila, as well as a lot of other organizations who came on to help us get started. And we have been going since. The momentum is high, and we're about changing things for the better of our community and trying to improve this environmental injustice that's been imposed upon us for decades. Thank you.
Ms. Lyles. We love your energy. Malia, we're going to go back to you now then.
Thanks so much. Hi, everybody. I'm Malia Gertzla. I am the Director of Clean Water and Equity at the Alliance for the Great Lakes, she, her pronouns. I'm based out of Chicago, and as Ms. Yvette said, I used to be at NRDC, and it was during that time that I got to know Ms. Yvette and the other residents of Centerville and Kennedy and the incredible Nicole and Kalila and all the other folks on the support team. They were foundational for the work that I do. I learned an incredible amount from them, and it was one of the most important times where I learned about how the civil rights framework has been used for decades to look at water infrastructure and the discrimination and deprivations that were at the core of our country back when these water systems were built out or not built out for some folks. And a lot of my work that I do today for the Alliance is based on that foundation. So really look forward to being here for this conversation, hoping to bring a little bit of insight into what to do with an investor-owned utility if you live in a community like Ms. Yvette's and you're supposedly served by one of the the largest investor-owned utility in the U.S.
Yeah, and that raises the whole problem of privatization of things that are public assets and public goods. So thank you so much. We'll turn now to Kennedy Moyers Gardner.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Kennedy Mears Gardner, and I am a staff attorney with Equity Legal Services. Ms. Yvette and Emily already referenced us a little bit, but we're a small legal nonprofit based in Fairview Heights, Illinois, and we we work alongside communities of color and marginalized communities to provide services, legal assistance, community empowerment, and advocacy. And we primarily, right now, serve the residents of formerly Centerville, now Cahokia Heights, and East St. Louis. And we represent CCC, which Ms. Yvette already talked about, in federal litigation in the Southern District of Illinois. So we have 2 active cases going right now there, and then a consent decree case as well through the DOJ and EPA. And we help the residents however we can. But yeah, they've been dealing with decades and decades of stormwater flooding and sewage overflows, and it's just devastating. So thank you so much for having us, and we're really excited to be here.
Thank you, Kennedy. We're coming back in the room, and Aaron Kenzig, we heard you from you before, but we want to bring you now as a member of our panel.
Is this gonna work? Does it work?
It's working.
Hi again, Erin Kansig, Drinking Water Program Director at River Network. And I'll just add to what I already introduced before is that it's really like the best part of my job that I work with hundreds of organizations across the country, including all of the ones that are on this panel, to do a lot of this work. River Network also focuses on healthy rivers as well as climate resilient communities. So not just drinking water work. So yeah, just an honor to be with y'all.
Yeah. And I think that underscores this really is a family. I mean, we may be from different states, different places. The nature of the water challenges might be slightly different, although we see far more overlap, I'm hearing, than I see differences. And that we're all in the struggle together. And we're so much stronger when we create a coalition together. And I think we see that represented here in the panel. I'm going to go again in the same order that we had before. I'm going to ask you one question. And hopefully, again, we can get through 11 folks. So kind of focus on being your concise selves. And I'm going to have a jump ball question at the end and sort of invite everybody in and have sort of more of a free-for-all in terms of discussion. But Ms. Cecily McClellan, we're coming back to you. We heard earlier about the LIWOP dollars. How were the LIWOP dollars used in Detroit? What happened to the funding program once these dollars were no longer available? And what can we learn from that?
The LIWOP dollars, which were absolutely refreshing, were used in the city of Detroit to fund what was called the Detroit Lifeline Program. And that program was one of a kind in the sense that it provided a tiered income level that depending on your income, you could pay $18, $34, $46 or $56. And you could be at whatever your arrearage was at that time. The LIWOP dollars were used to erase those arrearage. And so it allowed many Detroiters, it serviced up to like 28,000 Detroiters to get out from under these really heavy, deafening bills that they had been struggling with for years. As when the LIWOP dollars were eliminated, almost as fast as the program was created, it was eliminated. So within 6 months' time, we had 28,000 people reduced down to 8,000. Then it was reduced down to 0. And then they began to develop another program based on a few dollars that we were getting from a regional authority called the Great Lakes Water Authority. And that program provides a minuscule amount compared to what was being provided by LIWOP. So LIWOP did provide an opportunity for people to get ahead on their water bills, and it makes me think, LIHEAP has been around for many, many decades, and folks depend on LIHEAP to pay their bills. The rate of water at this point in time is becoming so oppressive.
My apologies. So oppressive.
The steadfast increase of water in the city of Detroit and around the state of Michigan requires a steady program that provides affordability.
Why don't we switch mics for?
Yes, no, it works. Okay. We're looking to have a program that will provide a consistent flow of dollars for low-income residents. Because one of the worst things that you can have, and as we experienced, particularly at the bankruptcy and during the COVID era, were persons that had no access to water. And we had reached almost 150,000 households that had no access to water in the city of Detroit. And so having those dollars consistently made a difference, and not having them really put a hole in the program in the city of Detroit.
So thank you, but that underlies something that you taught me. There's a big difference between affordability and assistance. When you're relying upon assistance, the minute that spigot turns off, the program falls apart. Whereas if you strive for affordability, you have a sustainable long-term solution. And so one of the lessons we're taking away from this is we got to go back to affordability, and we can't sort of just trust these people to be having short-term fixes. But thank you so much, Ms. Cecily Norrell. Turning to you, how can lawmakers, advocates, allies, policy folks, and community members work to advance water affordability?
I believe, and I've been trained by community, that we got to work together. It's really when you center community, community has the lived experience, the community genius, the expertise of their experiences. You partner that with the technical expert, someone like me, an attorney, scientist, engineer. That's when we get the richest solutions, the community-based centered solutions. So you don't have to go and try to discover what's happening in community. Community will tell you what's happening. And then you can take your legal expertise, pair it with that community genius. And again, we get a rich, full experience, and everybody rises.
Yeah. So thank you so much. And we are being concise, which means we're going to have a lot of good, rich discussion coming towards the end. Mary, going back to Kentucky, you've been at this from a lawyer's perspective for a long time. How have you used your lawyer training to shape the policy and legal framework of water affordability in your community?
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to say, Norel, I love that I've been trained by community. I so agree with that. That's wonderful. So we started out in Martin County intervening in an investigation of the Martin County water system that had been going on. Well, it was the third investigation. There have been so many problems with the system. And that's the opportunity we first saw. That's the lever that we had, was to intervene in this investigation and do some discovery and ask some questions and bring some witnesses. And that really exposed a lot of malfeasance that was going on, a lot of corruption, a lot of problems in the system. And and I will also say that as soon as we were granted the right to intervene, because it was a fight, there wasn't a lot of precedent of allowing intervention, and especially water rate cases at that point. The board resigned. They were just like, well, we want no part of this. So we had a new board to deal with, and sort of that gave a new opportunity. But from that point in that investigation, the next case that went on for several years, and we were able to use that in a lot of different ways to get the information that we were seeking and get that information back to the people so they understood what the problem was, where it came from, and how we can start addressing the issues. From that point on, we had a couple of rate cases that we intervened in, and we were able to get some funding and hire Roger Colton as an expert in one of the rate cases. And that really, I think, that was a big moment for us because we had some recommendations. We had some things to present, and that was, I think, very important. It taught us a lot of the limitations as the State Public Service Commission sees them as their authorities under Kentucky law. And I guess I should have started to say we exist within a system where the water system is regulated by the State Public Service Commission. So that's fortunate. Not all are. So we have that avenue. But once we were really engaged in the rate cases and started really understanding what the legal barriers were, we have pivoted to more of a policy solution look at how we can systematically address some of those legal barriers through the Kentucky General Assembly, which is a challenging place to be, but we are pushing little by little, year by year, to try to get some of those barriers taken down.
Wonderful. Still in Kentucky, Nina McCoy, how did your community become aware of your water issues, and how did your water issues get linked to water affordability?
You know, our community has a long history of distrust of the water system. In 1964, Lyndon Johnson came to Inez, Kentucky to start the War on Poverty because of what a poor area of Appalachia that it was. Then in 1968, we got funding for a water system that was for 600 homes in the town of Inez. Well, then the coal boom hit in the 1970s and 1980s. And during that time, they dug out coal from underneath our feet. And as they did, people's wells sunk. Coal miners would tell us they saw when it happened. They could tell the well had sunk. So as that happened, that water system that was built for 600 homes was spread out, poorly done, cheaply done, so that the coal company was never held responsible. Instead, it was the ratepayers who were held responsible for a system that was not really able to deal with that. So now there are 3,500 homes on that system. And then in 2000, a major man-made environmental disaster where the coal company dropped coal waste into our water supply. At that time, the Division of Water from the state came in, the EPA from Washington, D.C. came in, the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry came in and told us that we didn't have to worry about it. Everything was fine. Our water system could handle it. We all knew that it couldn't. So we lost faith in not only our water system, but the federal system, the state system, everybody. So when that happened, we started buying bottled water. So, and every quarter we got notices that our water was in violation because the system just really couldn't handle it. Then in 2015, a group of young people started a Facebook group, not me, but a group of young people, and they called it the Martin County Water Warriors. And I was like, what is this? And they were like, yeah, that's what they have in Michigan, and we want Martin County Water Warriors. And this young lady saw that and contacted the community and said, you know what? If we can get a citizens group together, we can intervene in what was the third investigation into this system. And so that's how we finally got the citizens' voice into what was going on. And we really appreciate our attorney for that.
Yeah. Yes. Let's have some applause for that effort. And communities have to be involved, but it's not always easy to work with lawyers, I can say. And even if you try to teach law students how to better do it, it's an uphill battle given just the hierarchy that's built into the legal structure, the legal institution. So Mickey, I'm going to turn to you with a little bit of guidance. Being grounded in community, what's the role that lawyers can play or should play, and what's the role that community needs to do to hold them accountable?
Good role. Thank
You know, it's good for me to know lawyers. Uh, I, they have helped me out, when I got in. And I advise every one of you to, get to meet a couple of lawyers. Anyway, when Mary called us and told us that, she was available to intervene, and we Googled intervention and understood it. But you see, Mary's from the area. She's not from downtown Inez, beautiful downtown Inez, right? But she's from the same, she's a holler or two over in Virginia, but she knows our people. Wise County, Virginia has probably strip mined more coal than even the area. I think there are about, last time I checked, there were like 30% of the land area has been stripped. The hills taken, to get a little 2-foot seam of coal because greed won't stop. They go underground and get what they can, but greed ain't going to stop there. And greed is the problem we have with this country right now. And it's your problem. It's in Illinois. It's in Ohio. It's everywhere. It's all over the United States. There's not a person that should go without water, period. But anyway, it gets me back to Mary. I mean, she was a godsend. Where we were banging our head with county officials and state officials, Mary told us something about this place called the PSC. And so we went down there, and we could have never opened that door, but Mary just turned the knob. We didn't have to get hurt at all banging our heads. But it's so important. The legal service is so important, especially in this day and time. It was back then, it is now even more, because these people who do wrong, they need to be held accountable. And Mary's done it for us, and I hope you soon will find, if you don't have a Mary, you'll find your Mary, and all of us, and we all in this together. What happens in Illinois? If it's wrong in you, baby, it's wrong in me. What's ever happening in Detroit? If it's wrong in Detroit, it's wrong in Inez, Kentucky. That's the way we got to look at it. We got to join together like a union and fight like hell, and be ready to go to jail. Fight like hell and get ready to go to jail. Amen.
That's a hard act to follow, but Madison, we're going to ask you to try. There we go. I'm just the moderator. All right, Madison. So in Detroit, we have a very tense relationship, you might believe it, between Detroiters and our water utility that continues to this day. Have you been able to navigate a more collaborative relationship with your water utility while advancing water affordability? And if so, please tell us how.
Yeah. I don't even know if I even told my title earlier, so my apologies. I'm Like and Knowledge's community care coordinator, but also senior community engagement coordinator. And I've been with Like and Knowledge for almost 5 years this year. And to address the question, when it comes to Like and Knowledge as a nonprofit organization, we are a think tank. We link community members where we work with services, resources, information, research, education, anything and everything. And when it comes to, you know, our water operators in Martin County, and I say our because this is, you know, I feel like this is, I'm answering for concerned citizens too, kind of like talking out loud about this, is when it comes to the sensitivity and the topic around water, and especially our water operators, um, it the relationship has been just a challenge in general at first. When the water system, especially once Martin County Concerned Citizens was formed, they used to see folks like concerned citizens or folks like myself as like the enemy, but we're not. And so when it comes to the work that I do within Lichen, one of my biggest roles is to bring knowledge and experts together in a room, just like you were mentioning earlier, bringing water operators, bringing local voices, bringing different stakeholders together. But when it comes to the relationship with our water operators, I have a really short story that I would love to address. So when our water operators were first navigating the system, and I was trying to build relationships and rapport with our water operators, and also learning the story of our system from a professional lens, not from a personal lens, because again, I grew up in Martin County. One of the things that the water operators didn't truly see within my work and the work that I supported through Concerned Citizens was the legitimacy of us, and like the passion and actually understanding the problems. And so early in my years in the field, it was 2000, I think it was 2022, I was connecting with residents with different projects when it comes to water testing and just learning water stories from different parts of the community. One resident all of a sudden just started bringing up, um, I went foraging in the woods near some property, and as I was foraging, I saw this big metal tank that had bullet holes in it. And I didn't know who to go to or who to talk to about it, because I don't think the water operators would believe me and understand what I'm saying. And I see that you work on water issues here in home, and I wonder if you can come and see what I'm seeing. So of course, you know, you get your boots on, you get your pants on, and you go out in the woods, and it was a big water tank. And I took pictures. I got the GIS coordinates from that spot and everything. And as I went to our local water board meetings that happen once a month, after the meeting was over, I connected with the water operator and I said, "Hey, there was a general manager at the time. I was like, hey, this resident was telling me about this, looks like a tank that needs some like assistance or looked at. I showed him pictures. He wasn't for sure what I was even talking about, let alone even recognized it. And I was like, well, this is legitimate. Here's these coordinates. Go check it out when you can or if you can, because this could be a issue for a greater, you know, cause. And long story short, he went, and that was a tank that wasn't even identified or recognized within the system. And so, and also carried water loss as a total within the system. And so in that moment, it kind of showed the water operators and the water district the legitimacy and understanding and the care that not just Lichen, not just Martin County Concerned Citizens, but residents in general, when it comes to the plant, the system, and water for, you know, accessibility to water for all. And so when it comes to the water affordability component, I feel like Mary really addressed a lot of the comments around, you know, when it comes to the work that I do with Lichen, I really have strong partnerships with like Appalachian Citizens Law Center that kind of supports that kind of understanding around the policy and the legal aspects, but being able to take stories and the people's voices, like from Martin County Concerned Citizens or other residents who come and go in our brave space of our office in Martin County, to share their stressors around the system. And we share it with partners like Concerned Citizens. We share it with partners like Appalachian Citizens Law Center to support the creation of policies that really help the people. So thank you.
Thank you, Madison. We're going from the in-room to online. This is going to be a sort of a joint question to get responses from Ms. Yvette and from Alexis. And I'll ask Ms. Yvette to take the lead, and Alexis for you to answer after that. It says, your communities, I will say, has been inundated with environmental harms and injustice for years. How did your community become aware of the water issues, and how are your water issues linked to questions of water affordability?
Hello, this is Miss Yvette Lyles again with Centerville Citizens for Change, and I am our board secretary as well as a resident of the community for over 32 years. Our problem has been going on for 50 years, that's half of a century. We, the citizens and a bunch of senior citizens, I want to remind you guys, not young folks, but a bunch of older people who was quoted as being dumb, old, and didn't know what they were doing, got sick and tired of being sick and tired of going to our city town halls, telling our mayor and complaining about the flooding and the smell of the water problems we was having every time it would flood, and how our homes would be messed up with raw sewage, and we had to clean it out with the storm water. And like I said, never before had it just been storm water. It's always been a combination of raw sewage and flooding. But the problem was that with every episode and thereafter the episodes for quite a while, a lot of our residents would have brown water coming out our faucets, smelly, stinking. And if it smells like urine and feces, it is urine and feces. And we complained about this and complained about it, and they didn't do anything. So one of our residents, bless his heart, Mr. Walter Berg, got sick and tired as well, went up to the Urban League and had a meeting, and we started from there. A group of us got together after Walter had his first meeting. Then we had another meeting and brought in more citizens. But again, it was basically all senior citizens. And we verbalized to Equity Legal Service and the Urban League what was going on with our water, how we would have brown water, smelly water. You know, we didn't want to drink the water. And a good example of not wanting to drink the water, and I should have taken heed, my baby, my fur baby is gone, bless her heart. But she was 16 years and 3 months. And when she was about 3 or 4 years old, she wouldn't drink the water, and I took her to the vet. Well, if the dog doesn't drink the water, the human being shouldn't drink it either. Mind you, in 2018, I was hospitalized on infection disease. They thought I had traveled out the country to some third world country and was involved with contaminated water. And I was on isolation precautions with IVs in both arms, massive antibiotics going in both arms, trying to treat me. But they were insistent that I traveled out the country, and the only place I traveled to was our community. So with that being said, it became public information that she was sick. So thank God for Washington University coming on board to do the study of our community. And with all this I want you to understand, with all of this raw sewage flood water and water mains breaking, which means the stuff would get over into the water lines that come into our homes, that they did a study, and that study showed that we had H. pylori. Where was we getting it from? We weren't nasty people who didn't know how to wash our hands and clean our hands. We weren't filthy people. We are old, so old people know how to wash their hands to the skin go dry, okay? We even use bleach to wash our hands sometimes, okay? But the water problem became known, and they decided to test the water. And thank God for the water testing, because it did confirm everything that we have been complaining about for over 50 years. We got together, and thank God, with all the collaboration and oh my God, the people who cared when they heard about what we were going through, coming on board to collaborate with us and work with us and get this information out there, and get the politicians that were above the quote unquote local mayors who did not care, who misappropriated funds, who did not care about infrastructure change. Thank God for Centerville Citizens for Change, doing what they were doing with the group of people who supported us to bring about billions of dollars into our community to start infrastructure change that should have been done, like she said, 50 years ago. These are all old infrastructure systems. The lines going into people's homes, the water coming in, it's not safe. We don't trust, do you hear me? We do not trust the big water company in our community, which is throughout the United States. And I don't want to give them any recognition because they're wrong. They should be held accountable. And like he said, if you're going to get in trouble, get in good trouble for a good cause. And a good cause is that every home, every person in the United States deserves clean, uncontaminated water that will not make you sick as a dog and you have to go get treated by a doctor over and over and over again. And I say that because I'm one of the people who has this H. pylori over and over again because, quote unquote, you trusted the water company when they said the water was safe. It's not safe. So we have to bring about this change. We can no longer sit by and just let them give us dirty water and hike these fees up so high that you can't even afford to pay the water bill anymore. So we have to make a change. We have to be the catalyst. The change begins with us. And if we don't do anything, when is it going to get done? We want to see this come to fruition. We want to see these things change where we won't be treated inhumane, because that's what it is. It's inhumane to have people to pay for water and give them contaminated water. You turn your water on to take a shower, your water comes out brown. What? I just had new pipes put in. Why is my water brown? Oh, no, it's coming from the plant. Oh, the plant, the company that gives us our water supply. So until we hold these entities accountable and responsible for the things they're doing, they'll continue to do it and sweep it up under the rug and act like it doesn't matter. But it does matter, because people are dying because of contaminated water. And they should not be, not in the United States, quote unquote, of America, in the Midwest. Even if you wasn't in the Midwest, anywhere in the United States, you should have clean water.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Yvette. And I just know there are tons of people in Flint would say the same things and suffer the same disrespect of that you were suffering. And it is intolerable in any country.
It's racial environmental injustice, and it needs to cease.
Yep, absolutely. Alexis, I saw you nodding your head, but I'd love to hear what you have to share and to add.
Yeah, absolutely. Here in the city of Toledo, we first, the environmental concerns came to light, I would say in 2014, when Toledo suffered a water crisis, where were without water for 3 days. So we couldn't touch, we couldn't drink, we couldn't even boil the water. And so this was due to a microsystem toxin that came from nutrient pollution, which stemmed from a number of runoff sources, but primarily agricultural runoff. During that time, what became clear was that our system was ill-equipped to handle such a toxin that was so toxic that it rivals Agent Orange. Um, Consuming water with that toxin could cause neural damage and liver issues. It had actually killed a couple folks' dogs that day after consumption. And so that put us on high alert for what other things we could be exposed to. The city of Toledo, in response to that, had to put in a I want to say $300 million filtration system, as well as it also shed light on the fact that our water system was woefully out of date, and the infrastructure of it was very outdated. And so, in conjunction with that filtration system, as well as catching up on all of these water system updates to bring it up to standard, it caused the city of Toledo to accrue about $1 billion debt. And their solution to responding to this debt has been raising the rates on consumers. And so that you can see what was an environmental concern from runoff and agricultural pollution has now had a direct impact in correlation to water affordability. And something else that kind of came out of that was also realizing just how much strain this had on our most vulnerable communities. I live in a community that is 44.4% of the households rely on a single parent for the income, or a single adult for the income. Majority of our residents are elderly. So on the day that water crisis had hit, we had to actually go door to door, call a lot of our neighbors and our residents to let them know not to drink or touch or boil the water. Just because of that technological divide. When you're thinking about seniors and you're thinking about the best way to get that information to them, it's not always feasible to, post something on social media, to post something, and even on the television. Some of them aren't watching TV. Some of them are still getting their information via the paper. So it became crucial for us as a community to come together and fill in those gaps of need. Um, what happened was the water utility then went on to, we service just about 400,000 customers, even though in Toledo it still has public ownership of its water system. But we service communities that are outside of the city limits, so in the suburban area. Um, the trade-off for not going public was to institute a regional commission, which now sets the rates for the consumers. And so while Toledo has ownership of the system, we still have to essentially compete with our regional who are getting the water actually at a discounted rate, while people within the city are paying an increased rate. And so that even that negotiating power, even as a public system, is inequitable when you're looking at not just privatization, but regionalization of a system. And these practices are unsustainable, as we've heard throughout today's event.
Great. Thank you, Alexis. So we're going to have a slight change in format. So I'm going to ask our three panelists, everybody to stay seated, everybody where you're at. We're going to come back to the folks on the line and in the room to have a question as well. Norella said that we have a state representative, Representative Devendorf, who is going to speak to us. Norella, if you want to introduce, or you want me to just call up? So, great. Okay, I will continue to take my lead from the organizers and stay online then with Malia. We've heard a lot about law. We've heard a lot about community. As a law professor, I do believe there's a role for lawyers, and you have gone down that road in a very effective way. So what laws, ordinances, bills, policies have you been involved in drafting and putting forward to deal with some of these issues that we've held coming out of community?
Thanks. For this part, I was thinking of talking not about passing a law, but trying to actually implement it once a law got passed. So in Illinois, around the time that I was working with Ms. Yvette and some of the other residents, the state had passed a law requiring investor-owned regulated utilities to disclose a bunch of information about how many people's water they had shut off, how far in arrears folks were, how many people they had actually reconnected or who were still disconnected. And we were able to get that data, and we looked at the zip codes in Ms. Yvette's area, and the numbers for those zip codes were off the charts. There was a huge amount of debt, of shutoffs, you name it. And again, this isn't a community that the investor-owned utility had been serving for decades, but they had left 100-year-old plus pipes in the ground that were breaking, every time you turned around. And then they were billing the residents for their water. And the residents basically were relying entirely on buying bottled water to drink and to bathe and to cook. And then we're getting billed and then refusing to pay the bills in some instances because they were not getting service. But what ended up being extremely difficult, and it was interesting to me to hear about trying to intervene in the rate case in Kentucky, we tried to look into opportunities for raising the concerns that they were both not getting investment in the system and then they were getting billed on top of it within the existing rate cases, within all of the existing processes in front of the PSC. And after discussing with some utility experts, we were basically told those venues are not designed for you. They are not a good place for you to be able to tell your story. You are going to get lost in this large case, and you're probably not going to get the kinds of outcomes that would be meaningful. And the advice that we got was actually to try to go the route of a citizen-initiated complaint in front of the Utility Commission, where the residents could set their own terms, could raise the issues in their own voices, and that they wouldn't get swamped by this very arcane, very detailed process that ultimately would probably just approve the rate increases that the utility was proposing. We never got around to actually filing that case, but I think it was such an incredible learning experience. As an attorney, you go into these spaces and you want to get relief for your client. The problem is you automatically, when you're doing the justice work, you automatically get disappointed. You see how inadequate and how disappointing the kinds of remedies the law provides are. And then you see how important it is to be pushing the bounds and working with the residents to understand what a true just outcome would be and to try to make the laws even better. So I know there are lots of efforts underway to try to change those laws, but I thought I'd just give one example of a place where we had an advancement in the law, and it still was deeply, deeply inadequate given the much larger structure around utility regulation in the state and the huge power imbalance between some of these companies and the residents who are trying to fight them.
Thank you. And I'll just share, there's a growing awareness of the importance of equitable implementation. And a lot of our energy as advocates are towards adopting laws and getting laws passed, and that's important. But even in the process of drafting laws and approving laws, thinking through the issues of implementation that you were talking about is so important and is so often overlooked. So again, the panelists stay put. We're going to finish questions with everybody, but we are blessed to have Representative Emily Devendorf, who's going to talk about how her personal challenges with water shutoffs have informed her leadership on legislation to address water affordability for all Michiganders. And I will let our technical people do the rest of the magic to let this happen. Take it away, Representative Devendorf.
Okay, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Wonderful. Hello, everybody. I know that I've met several of you, and welcome to this convening for everybody else. I had a chance to catch some of the tail end of that. And we are about to get a storm, and it's coming right your way. So if there are any interruptions, just hang tight and I'll try to get back on as soon as possible. So as was mentioned, I came to this legislation, or my passion met this legislation due to the fact that I had, prior to being in elected office, also struggled with poverty. And while I was running for office, I had my own experiences with having my water shut off. One of the stories that I tell is that the day before I was to meet with my local water utility, I had my water shut off due to inability to pay my own water bills. And I went into that meeting, and the person I was meeting with led with the fact that they don't turn off water anymore and they give everybody every possible chance. And I knew that not to be true. And that's not to say that my local water utility isn't trying to do things differently. I'm proud to say my local water utility is publicly owned, and it has its own water affordability program. It just isn't adequate to meet the need. And we know that that's the case in so many places. And that was not the first time that happened. For folks who have dealt with poverty and inability to meet their basic needs, that is just one bill. That's one example when you know that it affects so many other things in your life, basic needs that you just can't meet, or meeting them means that you are sacrificing other basic needs. And that is, of course, a calculation math that we don't want to ever make anybody do. So when we say things like no Michiganders should have to choose between paying their water bill or putting food on the table, that is a very literal, true example. And I know it's a case that I've had to try to plea when I was unable to pay my bills, that if I were to pay off this debt or pay this parking ticket, then it means I do not eat. It means that I cannot care for the people in my household. It means that I cannot pay for my water. And then once the water's shut off, it's that much more difficult to get it back on. Poverty is a hole that just keeps getting dug deeper. And that is something that, if you haven't experienced it, it's really difficult to understand or to even envision. And I hate to say that my first few years in office, there has been a lot of explaining why we should care about other people, but also how fragile our social safety net and how easily we could all get to that point. How we are one crisis away from so many things, which is why I work on homelessness as well. But I also insist that if a human being needs something in order to survive and establish stability, then we need to find a way to provide that. It is not fair that some folks should have what they need and others should have to struggle for the most basic resources. In Michigan, we know that our agricultural, healthcare, energy, and industrial sectors also rely on affordable quality water to operate and expand. Without affordable water, we would have to cut jobs, we would limit expansion. That's not my main motivation behind this bill, although I know that it is important. My motivation behind this legislation in Michigan is that human beings are not able to be healthy and safe without access to water. And if you know me, you know that that extends to shelter, it extends to food. But water is the foundation of so much. Over the last several decades, Michigan residents have faced skyrocketing water prices, with prices increasing nearly 200% since 1980. That's absolutely unacceptable, and it's not something that we can ignore. But the folks that really can't ignore it are the folks that experience it. And too seldom do we hear from the people who are really experiencing the impact of this. Low-income households are disproportionately affected, paying up to 25% of their income on water. That's if they're able to pay it at all. And we know that utility costs continue to go up in every area. Public programs that offer income-based water rates increase the likelihood of the utility company itself being able to collect revenue. So when we are helping people to pay their bills, we're also ensuring that the utility companies are able to continue functioning and offering that service and that resource to everybody. Otherwise, without these income-based water programs, households couldn't pay their bill at all, and the utility companies would have to go without that revenue. So this system that we're trying to create recoups more revenue than pursuing costly shutoffs and unpaid bills, which is a great selling point for any other legislator who have to make that case. I formerly had worked in civil rights primarily, and I hated the fact that so many people insisted that we had to make the case based on economics when really we should just care about people. So I will say again, we should just care about people. It should matter if our neighbors are struggling, and also it is always a smart economic decision when we're taking care of our neighbors. Additionally, we know that research shows that lack of access to clean water compromises sanitation, it spreads disease, it threatens public health. We've seen that damage, the damage that a pandemic can cause, and I'm sure that none of us want to return to that experience. But we're talking about public health in its purest sense. Michigan recently faced one of the largest hepatitis A outbreaks in the United States, with a 3.3% fatality rate. And if we're going to avoid outbreaks like this, we need every Michigander to have access to clean, safe, and affordable water. And this, I was actually just making this point to third graders this morning for March's Reading Month. We were talking about the importance of sanitation and hygiene and cleanliness and access to clean resources. And they understood. So I would hope that our legislators could as well. That's not where the impact on community health ends. Every year, lack of access to water leads to 219,000 cases of waterborne illness nationwide, 71,000 cases of mental illness, and the loss of 68.7 million work hours. It results in the deaths of approximately 600 Americans annually. When I spoke with my staff about the link to mental health, we know that it has to do with so many things. It has to do with what happens when you drink water that is not safe. We have seen the impact on neurological and developmental health in Flint, Michigan. Another example that we just absolutely never want to return to again, and we have not completely addressed at this point, to this day, in Michigan. So as public servants, we know that it's our job to protect the public. Water affordability legislation protects our people, our neighbors, but it also ensures a stability and a standard of health that absolutely every single human being deserves. And in absence of that, we know what happens. When you need water for health and living and safety, we know that without it, those things just are not there in a consistent way. That's why we introduced this package. I introduced the Affordable Water Now package with the Water Equals Life Coalition, and several of my legislative colleagues. I see We the People is here tonight, We the People of Detroit, and they have been fantastic advocates for this. On this package, are Representatives Jimmy Wilson, Cynthia Neely, who represents Flint, Dylan Wagella and Noah Arbit, and myself. And it would create a statewide water affordability program. The program that we pulled together is income-based water billing. So it adjusts water bills using a sliding scale based on federal poverty level and household income, ensuring that water costs are manageable and that everybody pays into the system. So it's not that nobody would be it's not that anybody would be left out of their ability or their responsibility to contribute, but you would only have to contribute what you could afford. And that's really important to your ability to balance the rest of your life and the rest of your budget. It includes debt forgiveness. So it offers full debt forgiveness for customers who keep up with their adjusted bills, alleviating financial stress and preventing shutoffs. It also includes water shutoff protections. So it protects enrolled customers and households with minors, pregnant individuals, seniors, those with medical needs from water shutoffs. It has limited renter protections as well. It also includes data transparency. Now, this is important because it requires drinking water, sewage, and stormwater providers to file detailed annual reports and maintain public websites to ensure transparency, accountability, and equitable access to those services. I think at this point in our country's history, as utilities and corporations continue to make really pretty substantial profits, that the average person is very interested and supportive of accountability measures, of transparency, and of our tracking of performance and production. So we want to make sure that there is something that is available for the public so that we can keep an eye on our utilities and ensure that everybody is getting served by these programs. And that's a general overview. I really appreciate the coalition and everybody that came out to learn about this. We really do hope that what we are advocating for can become a national model, and that at some point we can get to a place where we are no longer shutting off water and its ability to sustain our lives.
Can we show our love for Representative Devendorf?
Thank you, everybody.
And I just want to thank you for your leadership. And I teach a course on movement lawyering, and we use Marshall Gant's the sort of story of me and how important it is for us to tell our stories, even if it's hard. So I just really also want to thank you for being willing to share your story, but more importantly, how you're exhibiting amazing leadership for our entire state on this important issue. Would you have time for 2 questions from the audience?
Sure, absolutely.
So we'll take 2 questions for Representative Devendorf. So either online, we'll take one if people want to come off mic, and then in the audience, we can take one. So anybody online want to ask a question? Anybody in the audience?
And while we're fielding this, I'll just say that I really appreciate the emphasis on storytelling and also recognizing the vulnerability of it. When I was first running for office, I was told that I should not talk about the fact that I had been poor, that I should not talk about the fact that I ever struggled to pay my bills because nobody wanted to vote for a poor person. And what we actually know is the fact is that rather we should be voting in people that understand our lives, and we should be voting in people who have experienced what we have experienced in our lives. And the most vulnerable among us in our neighborhoods are the ones who can best tell the stories of what we need and how to support each other. So I do hope we can get to a place where money and our own financial stability does not keep us out of representing our communities and advocating for ourselves.
Thank you. We do have a question.
Yes, thank you, Representative Teresa Landrum from Detroit. In this introduction, of this bill, have you seen bipartisan support? Because we know that you being a person that has walked in the shoes of someone that has suffered water shut off, you can tell the experience because it's a lived experience. But what we see in our legislators, they don't have that lived experience. They don't have that poverty at their door, because most of our elected officials, they have the money to run for office and they are more privileged. So by you walking that experience, what have you seen as far as bipartisan support for a water affordability plan to sustain low income people and even middle income people? We're struggling too. Okay, I retired from General Motors. People look at me as a blue collar worker, and that you have an income, but the cost of living has rapidly increased fourfold, tenfold, and so my income is limited. So I'm like, hey, how am I going to pay my water bill the next month? I just barely made it, had the ability to pay this month. Thank you.
That's a really excellent question. And it's also something that I was talking about just earlier today. So we see bipartisan support for programs like water affordability. We don't see enough of it, in great part because we don't see understanding of poverty. And that has been very frustrating. You know, we've spent 3 years trying to convince colleagues to care about other people. And that's certainly not anything that you want to expect of public servants. But we also see a direct connect to lack of experience with poverty, rooted as the root for that lack of understanding. I also am the co-chair of the bicameral legislative Poverty and Homelessness Caucus. So we have a chair in the House and a chair in the Senate, and it is a bipartisan caucus. Initially, I thought that we could dive into working on housing and homelessness and issues like affordability for water and food, because why wouldn't we want to do that? And over time, what I've discovered is that there is such a lack of core foundational understanding of poverty and homelessness and how households under the poverty line struggle. And you're correct. Middle income folks are struggling as well. Life is unaffordable, period. But there is such a lack of understanding that we have to start at 101. At one point, I did have a colleague stand up and say in front of me, clearly referencing the work I was doing on homelessness, that they were tired of hearing me say that people suggest that people would die in the street if we did not work on homelessness. And I had to say, you may not see it in your community. It doesn't mean it's not there. You may not have experienced it. It doesn't mean it's not happening. It is happening, and people will die on the street. People are dying while living outside. And that was while we were talking about homelessness, but it was a reality check that we had to start at homelessness and poverty 101. So that's what we've been doing with our homelessness caucus, is to bring in advocacy organizations, people doing direct service, and people with lived experience to speak directly to legislators and say, this may not be your experience, but this is what my life looks like, and these are the problems that I need solved, and I need to be able to contribute myself to what our solutions are. But I had to admit to myself that, gosh, we have a lot of work to do in just building that foundational understanding of these experiences. And I see that we had another question in the chat, and Christy is handling how the sliding scale works in the chat.
Yeah, and Christy Myers, if you want to come off mic, you can be our last question for this section.
Thank you so much for making time tonight and for this wonderful panel. I just wanted to ask Representative Dievendorf, one of the questions was about bipartisanship. And so what can people do that live in Michigan to support the Affordable Water Now package? How would you go about telling them what they could do?
So I am a former nonprofit lobbyist. Um, and organizer, community organizer. And I will always ask that you contact your legislators in both chambers, the House and the Senate, in both parties, Republican and Democrat. It goes a long way to share your personal stories, as was already referenced. So if you have a personal experience with your own utilities being shut off or not being able to meet your basic needs, and you are willing and feel comfortable sharing that, that always makes a huge difference. But weighing in with your legislator, letting them know that this is a priority and that there really is no excuse for us not advocating for our neighbors and the stability of our own lives, the affordability of our everyday needs. That it is an urgent situation. It's becoming more and more urgent as the days go on and life is more unaffordable. So I would ask you to contact your legislators, contact the governor's office, let them know that this is a priority and that you don't feel that we need to add an additional fee on folks' bills to make this happen. That we should be passing water affordability legislation that does not make it harder for the folks who are already hardest hit.
Great. Thank you so much. And again, another round of applause for Representative Evenborg.
Thank
We
you so
really
much,
appreciate your
everybody.
leadership and spending time with us. Thank you. All right, so we're going to go back to the panel. We've got two more panelists to ask questions of. Then we'll go to audience questions, and I will take it from the organizers about how to manage the time that we have there. But I will take my direction from the folks in charge. Kennedy, we're coming back to you, and we thank everybody for your patience. But I think everybody would agree that that was very well worth the listening to and the inspiration that we've had. But my question for you is how do you engage with community as they navigate environmental harms and access to clean, safe, and affordable water? What are some of the critical elements of community attorney partnerships?
Awesome. Yeah, this is a great question. I think, and Miss Yvette can jump in too if this is correct, but by listening first, right? Like by giving the community the soapbox, I mean, to get up there and tell their stories and to actually take time to listen and sit down. And that's what's been so incredible about ELS. So actually our fearless leader, Nicole Nelson, is on the line right now too. But back in 2018, when Walter Bird, who Miss Yvette mentioned, came to Nicole with an issue with one of his bills actually, and said, "Hey, I have sewage coming up in my yard. I have flooding happening all the time when it rains." And Nicole said, "Oh my God, this is not normal, right?" And that's what Board Equity Legal Services. And since then, we've been helping the residents and Nicole and Kalila Jackson as well, my other wonderful colleague, got the residents together, started organizing, brought them into a room to talk, to figure out what their top priorities were, to sit them down and listen to those stories. Like I said, went to their homes. They talked to the residents, they talked to their families, and just heard about what was going on in the community. And that helped inform how to move forward, right? So our organization uses a community first approach. So the community leads everything. The community guides all decisions. The community is part of all the decisions that are made. The community just leads the way. And so another thing I would say though is as part of this work, it is trauma informed too, right? There's trauma there. You have to treat this with care. You have to treat this with kindness and compassion. But you also just have to show up and get the work done, right? And that builds a lot of trust within the community as well. Showing up, doing what needs to be done, listening to the residents, but then also being adaptable. And I think that's something that our organization is great at, is figuring out where there's a need, because the needs are going to change, right? And Miss Yvette knows this all the time. There's new needs arising. I mean, when you have flooding happening all the time, cleaning supplies are needed. When you have unsafe drinking water, right? Bottled water, like Miss Yvette was talking about, is needed. And ELS has done a great job of adapting to that need, but also partnering with CCC, Centerville Citizens for Change, and CCC has done an incredible job of advocating for their community. And I just have to point out too, CCC does wonderful different programs that go to that adaptability. And one of them is because of the drinking water that's unsafe and unaffordable, to be completely honest. CCC came together and realized that this was a huge issue and partnered with some organizations to do a monthly bottled water drive. So the residents of former Centerville now get monthly bottled water sponsored through CCC and some other organizations, and that's an incredible resource for the community. But also CCC's done things like a home repair program in partnership with ELS too, right, to help repair residents' homes after they've been destroyed by flooding and sewage. Because as you can imagine, after decades of that devastation, then there's going to be some repairs that are needed and deserved by the community. So adaptability is huge. And I think the critical elements of that community attorney relationship is that relationship building, right? That trust building, and putting the community first and letting the community guide where you're going to go and what direction you're going to move, even litigation wise too, right? That's one thing that the residents came together and said to Nicole and Kalila originally is like, we want to take this to court, right? We want to effectuate our rights in court. And so that's why we're in litigation at this point still. And so, yeah, I think that's what I would say. It's all community led and community guided. And Norel pointed that out earlier. And so we're led by the community.
Yeah, and I just say really, really insightful. Without the community, there would be no cause of action. Without the community, there wouldn't be action. But I think we've also seen modeled on this panel really a wide range of powerful lawyering styles, and you lead by modeling. And so I just applaud the lawyers that we have here to really model how to work with community and give the community the dignity that they deserve and acknowledge the expertise that rests in community. Relatedly, I'm going to go to you, Aaron, back in the room, and it's an important sort of corollary concept of building power, right? So building power is an important aspect of environmental justice. What shared learnings and opportunities for collaboration on both community and policy solutions do you see to advance water affordability?
Listen to everyone else on the panel. That would be my recommendation. Yeah, speaking truth to power, I think would be the number one takeaway. And prioritizing and listening to those community voices and figuring out the solutions. Like we already hold all of the solutions. We just need to make them happen. Monica was mentioning being in DC and saying like, man, the capitulation is really discouraging. And so I'm not going to say anything new. Like we have to hold those decision makers to account and keep up the pressure like every moment. Yeah, nonstop is what's being said over here. So yeah, I don't think I have anything to add other than like everyone should listen to this amazing group both online and in person and do what they tell you to do.
Thank you, Aaron. We have a round of applause for all of our panelists, both in the room and online. No, I'm walking away inspired, and I think the members of the community are as well. We do have some time for Q&A. I'd love to alternate in room and online if that cadence works, but we'll improvise if it doesn't. And so whoever raises their virtual hand or their real hand first is going to be called on first. So, and first going to welcome some voices that may not have yet spoken. So people that want to ask questions. And Deborah? Excellent.
A simple question is, Representative Devendorf still available? Is she gone? I wanted to know how the bills would be funded if we aren't charging fees, that package of bills, just how would the revenue be generated for the affordability component?
I don't think the representative is with us, but does anybody else have an answer to that?
Yes, I can answer that. So one of the things that we found was critical when you're shaping true water affordability is to decouple it from a funding source. Because what happens, as Ms. McClellan mentioned, when you have a funding source that is that can change and shift, then the affordability protections go away. So with the Affordable Water Now package, you have options. It gives options to the the water utility to decide how to infuse those funds into the program. One of the ways is really by charging an affordable rate. Like those are bills that are uncollectible. So you look at water utilities and you see rate increases. Well, what they don't tell you is that the rates increase because a lot of those unpaid bills from last year. So you're, whether you want to or not, you're subsidizing your residents, right? So when you have water bills that people can't afford, they pay more into the system. And then again, we the bill gives broad depth to each utility to be creative. So there is a study that was done by Moonshot Missions that says that a one-time rate increase of about 10% can actually sustain water affordability. So you won't have to do those continual increases every year trying to figure out how to pay last year's unaffordable rates, right? So I'll leave that there. If there's anything that anyone else from the coalition would like to add. No? Okay.
Right. Again, I'll so open it up to everybody. Malaya, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, this is a question for the advocates from Kentucky, and I know Ms. Yvette a little bit, so if she wants to jump in too. Some of the work that I've done in the community learning space has recognized that the organizing side of it is what really moves the decisions, right? That you can only get so much out of the courts, but you really need the people to be showing up and taking actions. One case, there was a hunger strike that was taken in front of, for an extended amount of time. There were marches on decision makers' houses, things like that. And I was wondering if you could all speak a little bit about kind of what has moved you to action and how do you kind of keep up the bravery to stand up in places where there isn't a camera there or you don't have a lot of folks standing with you. I would love to hear a little bit more about kind of being the ones who stand up and say enough is enough and what kinds of actions you found to be effective in bringing your message in ways that don't necessarily involve lawsuits or lawyers or the courts.
Well, I know that, when we were starting our Martin County Concerned Citizens group, not a lot of people would show up for meetings. But what we started to do was to put them online. People were afraid to show up for meetings because they didn't want to let some people know how upset they were. But we would put them online. And one of the things that Mary so gently did was explain what it was that we were dealing with. Because, community, we don't know what the Public Service Commission did. We weren't aware of, okay, this is what the Division of Water, this is what we need to do, this is who we need to contact. And so finding that out. And then she actually brought in the University of Kentucky to do water testing through what's called the University Cares project. And then people started to come out to meetings. And then she suggested that the Public Service Commission actually come to our county because it's 3.5 hours to our capital. And so the Public Service Commission showed up and all of a sudden we've got 100 people in the room and they weren't afraid to show up anymore. So it brought the community out when they saw that we were bringing them knowledge. And that's what helped them to feel like they could then speak up.
I just want to echo a little bit about the knowledge component because like Nina was saying, there was this project that we were able to do. It was called the Martin County Water and Health Study. And this project was able to kind of bring the sense of awareness regarding this trauma that our community had around the slurry spill, the sludge spill. And with that project, that led to the sense of awareness and understanding of, okay, our water health is not slurry. That's not an issue. It's a compound known as disinfection byproducts. Historically, that has been something that has been documented in Martin County as a concern for 15 years from 2002 to 2017. And so from that, we were able to do a project known as the Mountain Drinking Water Project. And that 5-year project that we just finished up at the end of last year showed our community members that our water is not as bad, you know, when it compared to others across the Commonwealth of Kentucky. But when it comes to our story and our issues, when it comes to the messaging, it's just like our water's not toxic from the slurry. It's our infrastructure and the water that's going to the people that is causing the problems, the discoloration, the pressure, whether it's high or low pressure, the water loss in general. So it's like that level of education and understanding too brings a whole nother layer of sense of empowerment for residents to be able to speak more about their water and to speak more about their livelihoods and how it's impacting, and it carries the narrative more into larger conversations when understanding the system. And it was community scientists, yes, residents trained, residents educated and informed, 22 of them for 5 years. We were able to do this. So
Love that. So I'm going to have a last call for questions in the room and online. And yes, ma'am.
Thank you. This question goes to the young lady, I forgot your name, on the end. You mentioned malfeasance earlier that that were happening or hurt. Anyway, somebody mentioned it. What is the value of asking for a forensic audit of our water department and our regional authority? Because in my opinion, just my opinion, everything is put on the back of the ratepayer, capital improvements, infrastructure improvements. I've been going to city council meetings and meetings off and on for over 30 years. And it's always, we need infrastructure improvement. But I never see it in my community. But what I see is all these 6-figure and 7-figure salaries going to all these people making the decisions. And 1 year, I can remember, I think 20 years ago, I asked for a forensic audit of the water department before the regional authority came in. They told me, oh, it'd be too costly. It'd be too costly. But what's costly is how we've seen hundreds of thousands of people's water turned off over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll start and see if there's anything else to add on that. So there are a couple of things. There was a long history of money coming into the Martin County water system that was not accounted for. Grants that were change orders happening, money being shifted from one grant to another. It was never quite clear where things were going. Early in our work, we worked with Food and Water Watch and formally asked the Kentucky Attorney General to investigate some particular grant fundings that had gone awry. And the Attorney General at that time said that the records had been destroyed, that it was in the normal course of record retention, so therefore he could not, say anything bad about the fact that they could not get those records. But he said he tried to do his investigation and could not get the records. We were, through the investigation process before the Public Service Commission, able to do a lot of discovery and get the system's long-term accountant on the stand and ask a lot of questions about bills that just didn't make sense. We never got, we never were able to tie those knots. We were never ever able to say exactly what happened to the money, but I think we were able to make the case clear enough that there was a problem, that money had been unaccounted for, that a lot of money that came into the system should have been improving the system and was not used that way. And so one of the outcomes of that investigation was that not only did the board all quit, but basically everyone who had had a role in that system was no longer with the system. The accountant left, everyone else was gone. So we felt like, we never got the answers, but we got kind of a fresh start. We got some new people on board who were much more professional and much more accountable and more transparent in what they were doing.
Thank you. I'm saying, yeah. In law school, kind of the holy grail is transparency, accountability, and legitimacy, right? And if that's not built into the institution is just hardwired not to work well or to be exploited for a variety of different purposes. So thank you for that. I want to thank all of you for staying with us, both those people who are online and the audience. This has been amazingly rewarding and educational and inspiring. I want to thank We the People of Detroit and Norrell Hampel for being the sort of organizing and convening partners that brought us together and always moving us forward and the momentum for that. Really want to thank the panelists. I mean, this is an amazing group of people in the room and online. Your passion is clear, your knowledge is clear, and I see the relationships that have pre-existed this that bring the power into the room, and I think we've only created more power by bringing us all together and forging these relationships even deeper. So thank all of the panelists for us now. A big round of applause.
Dr. Hammer, can we?
And I will turn it over to Monica Lewis-Patrick to close us out.
And 1 second, for the panelists, in 5 seconds, can you tell people how to connect with you?
When it comes to Appalachian Citizens Law Center, we have a Facebook page and also a website. When it comes to Martin County Concerned Citizens, we have 2 Facebook pages you can follow. We have Martin County Concerned Citizens and Martin County Water Warriors. Check them out. And when it comes to Like and Knowledge, we also have a Facebook page, Livelihood Knowledge Exchange Network, and also a website, likeandknowledge.org. Follow us and stay plugged in.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
You can find us
We
at
People of Detroit.
Oh, go ahead.
Excuse me, We the People of Detroit. You can reach out through our webpage. We encourage everybody to take the pledge in support of water affordability. We also are very much connected to the Water Equals Life Coalition. So you can go online and connect with Water Equals Life, and you can also take the pledge there. And just look out for us and support, with the water department.
Wonderful. Aaron?
And sign up for the monthly We the People newsletter.
You can reach River Network at rivernetwork.org. All staff's emails are listed on the website. We're also on Instagram and Facebook, I think.
Good. And let's go online. And then we'll come back to you, Mary, for additional online folks who want to tell us how to connect with you.
Hello, can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi, this is Miss Yvette, Centerville Citizens for Change. We can be reached at Flooded and Forgotten. We also can be reached, we do have a Facebook page, Centerville Citizens for Change. And you may also reach out to us via Equity Legal Services and the Urban League, both of Fairview Heights, Illinois. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thanks, Mr. Yeah. And we
Well,
have a
thank you.
website as oh, thank you. We have a website as well. It's Equity Legal Services. Malia put it in the chat, and I also put my individual email in the chat as well. Thank you.
And Alexis.
Yeah, I put my individual email in the chat, Alexis Smith at 419junction.org. We're Junction Coalition on all socials, Facebook and Instagram. And then our website is junctioncoalition419.org.
And Malia, any additional?
Yeah, you can find the work that we're doing at the Alliance for the Great Lakes at greatlakes.org. And I put my email in the chat as well, mgertsma, GEERTSMA at greatlakes.org.
Thank you all. And to close us out, Monica Lewis-Patrick.
Well, we just want to thank all of you. I can't tell you, for Water Warrior, this is like revival. I have had a wonderful time. These are all of our friends, our colleagues. Thank God for all of our friends from Kentucky that are here with us, all of our family in Chicago, Illinois, Chi-Town. We definitely, our baby in Toledo, who is going to be a student here at Wayne State in the law program. I put that out in the atmosphere. But all the family that's in the room, as you've seen, when we come together, we are unstoppable. We are unstoppable. It wasn't anybody that woke up and decided that we deserve water. We say that we deserve water. And as the Honorable Councilwoman Joanne Watson would tell us often, we have a God-given right to fight for the human right to water. And so if you'll deputize yourselves with all of us, we know that this is a fight that we can win. And we often say it, we the people of Detroit, whose water? Whose water? Whose water?
Our water.
It's our water, and you're daggone Skippy. We're going to fight for it. Thank you so much for joining us. We're so grateful to have all of you here. And thank you, Peter Hammer, for being one of the baddest brothers in the city of Detroit. I call him the Hammer. He opened his doors. It was no question, and we're so grateful for all of you being with us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you all. God bless.